Welcome to Product by Design with Kyle and Eva,
a podcast about product management and product design,
where we'll talk about subjects from product strategy to inclusive design.
Every episode, we just have a good conversation about all the things that you may already know or not know, and occasionally we'll have a guest from maybe engineering or other product managers and designers to talk about all these topics.
Hello. This is Product by Design, a podcast with Kyle and Eva, and welcome to our first episode. We're here talking about, you probably guessed it, product and design. And we wanted to get things started by talking a little bit about what this podcast is going to be about, a little bit about our backgrounds, and just some of the things that interest us right now in product, user experience, design, and everything that's going on. And yeah, so welcome. I'm Kyle. I am a product leader and a longtime product manager. And we also have Eva, who is a lead designer. Eva.
Hi, this is Eva. And like Kyle said, I work as a lead product designer with Kyle, actually. And yeah.
So Eva, tell us a little bit about kind of your experience. What was it that you were doing before you got into product design, and then how did you get into product design?
Let's see. How far back do we want to go?
All the way back.
All the way back, 1991. But
it all began.
But really, it all began back when I started putting stickers on all my drawers and stuff. And I mean, really, as a child, I liked art and fine art more. But then, so I went to college for fine art. Actually started with painting. Eventually, I was just like, design sounds a lot better. And I actually graduated with a BFA in graphic design. And I think that's how a lot of people get started. And even though nowadays I feel like you can really come in from all different directions or angles into UX or design, it's a lot easier nowadays to do that. But I started with a graphic design background and went into paper product design, which is very interesting, not even on a computer. And it's in the craft industry, which I was like, this is cute. This is cool. But I didn't really relate to that industry. And then after that, I started as a web designer. And that was kind of the first try in, the adjacent field in web design. And there's definitely UI UX involved in that. But from there, I then went into product design.
Nice. So what has been kind of your favorite part of product design so far, or some of the favorite moments of your career?
I guess like when people get really confused or get really worked up about certain part of design and they come over and have a conversation about it. And then we get to share the different perspective of why I make certain decisions. And then sometimes it's like, oh, the users need this particular thing to do this, and the business, requirements might not paint that exact same picture. And then, so when those kind of conversations happen, I feel like we can, then come together and educate others about what their users need. So I really love those. What about you?
So I guess as far as some of my favorite moments in my product career are probably something similar. When people finally have like those aha moments about yes, we need product, whether that's product management or product design, like user experience in what we're doing. And like whether that's the business partners or stakeholders, when they just have like the realization that, wow, you're adding just a ton of value to what we're doing. How do we get more of that? And I have had a bunch of those over the course of my career, and those feel like they're the most validating moments when people actually realize like, wow, I somewhat understand what you're doing, and I want more of that. We had that happen just last week actually, with when one of the groups that we work with fairly closely at our organization came to me and wanted to know, how do we start hiring product managers, or how do we start hiring a product manager specifically for our group? And what are some of the things that we need to look for and be thinking about? And it was like, yes, this is so validating. you you have seen the value, and just seeing that, not just at our organization, but at other organizations, just as people see that value that product management, product design can bring, and realize that this is a thing, and they want it, and they want to bring it into their departments or their groups. And I think those are the most validating parts for me.
It's the enlightenment that they have been waiting for, and you delivered for them.
Exactly.
Yeah, we might be going a little backwards, but can you tell us a little more about your background, how you got into product? And I know you have been in product a lot longer than I have been. So why don't you tell us a little?
Yeah, we'll go way, way back here. So I got into product even before I graduated from college. That's when my product experience really started. And I didn't even realize it at the time, that I was essentially doing product management in my role in college, where I was working with a lot of our developers in putting together software and tools for students on campus, for faculty who are using the computer labs and using the computers all across campus. So I was working with our development team, and then also working with our students and employees and faculty in kind of bringing all of those things together. And being kind of in the middle of that was just, I loved it. It was one of the coolest jobs that I could have imagined. Had no idea what it was, or that it was essentially kind of a product role. I just knew that kind of being in the middle of this user experience and technology, and getting to work with so many smart people and put together new software tools and new things, was just it. I loved it. And I would tell people, like, when I graduate, I don't know what I'm going to do, because I don't think I'll ever find a role as cool as what I'm doing right now. And so
little did you know, right?
Little did I know that, and I don't know how I fell into it, but somehow, some way, I fell into a product manager role at a financial company. So I interviewed at a whole bunch of different places, and that was the role that I ended up taking, and just did not realize that it would be very similar to what I was doing. And in some ways it was, in some ways it wasn't, but continued to do product management, and had the opportunity to kind of shape that role because it was very new, and it was building up a team here in Salt Lake City that didn't exist. And so bringing out a lot of other product managers from New York to Salt Lake, and helping to kind of build up an organization out here. And so that was just a super exciting time. And then from there, it's just been product ever since, and it's evolved and changed. And it's just been something that I've continued to fall in love with and enjoy since college. And so that's been kind of my experience.
Now I'm very intrigued. What were you building in college that was basically doing product management?
Yeah, so we were doing a whole bunch of really interesting things. So one of the, I'd say probably one of the coolest things was we were over all of the labs, the computer labs on campus. And so we would build the tools for the employees across campus to kind of manage their schedules, like their shifts, things like that. So they could, if they wanted to pick up different hours to work, or put up hours, things like that. So that was one of the tools. Then also, like, the faculty, the images on all of the computers across campus, and just different things like that. So working with the developers and the technicians who were kind of doing all of those things. So that was kind of my role. And again, kind of came into it completely by chance, and was just was really fortunate to have fallen into something so cool.
Yeah, they're like, sweet, Kyle's running this whole system for us. Great.
Yeah. Yep.
Were you a student or were you working for the school?
Both. So I was a student employee. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was good. And
Wow.
yeah, loved it. But it,
did you have the title of student product manager?
No, it was.
You should have if you didn't.
The official title was student assistant manager. So it was close, but not quite. Product manager really didn't exist at that time. And that's one of the things that I think has kind of changed drastically over, the past decade or so, is that products, just in general, I think product and user experience has really kind of come into its own, in that it's something that I don't think was really on anybody's radar, or was something that was really looked at prominently, a decade ago, the way it is now, which is an exciting thing because, I didn't know what it was back then. And I think that was probably the case with most people is, what is product management? What is the product design and user experience design? And just wasn't something that as many folks were as engaged with or thinking about. And
totally,
to see the change that has kind of happened, that not only is it something that is so prominent, or at least becoming more and more prominent, but that is becoming kind of an ingrained part of technology. And I still think it has a long ways to go, as we've kind of seen, a lot of companies building technology have kind of adopted it, but there's still just a ton of companies that are in the process of adopting it, like our company, for example.
Yes.
Product is, even I work for a company that product is a very, very new thing. Our product organization is officially probably about 6 months old, and so it's a very new
fetus state.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And then I think that's the case for a lot of companies. So building up this kind of new way of thinking and way of doing things is, it's been around for a while and is becoming more prominent, but still has a long way to go. And so it's an exciting thing, but there's still a lot of ground to cover. So that's been interesting. What have you kind of seen as far as on the design side, some of the changes that have been happening?
Before I give you my serious response, I just want to point out that people are listening right now. If anyone is listening, they probably are looking on LinkedIn or wherever to try to figure out how old you are and what year we're talking about. I'm very, very old. Just kidding. But yeah, so I have been in design. I guess I graduated in 2013. I think. No, I did not graduate in 2013. 2016 is when I graduated, I think. What year is this? 2020. I think, yeah, 2016 is when I graduated. So it's kind of interesting that there's so many things that you just talked about that I want to respond to. But UX design is still kind of a fairly new term. And when I was in school, we didn't really know what UX really means, and it started popping up kind of a few years back on my radar, I feel like. And then because when I graduated, I feel like I did graduate 2013. I'm sorry, like let's scratch this. I'm pretty sure it was 2013. And the big thing that what was happening in design was everyone was going into branding. Branding was like the big thing, right? And everyone wants to be designing logos. We're designing, whatever new hot brands that they can get their hands on. And it was still kind of like half digital, half paper, just still a bunch of logo stuff. And fast forward to now, everyone wants to go into product. Everyone wants to go into UI UX, and you kind of started talking about how our company right now is trying to move from engineering driven to more product management driven direction, which I think it's a must do. And I know we're not alone. A lot of companies are also trying to move into the same direction. And the interesting thing that I learned last week when I was at Convey UX, not last week, 2 weeks ago. I have trouble with time, apparently. So one thing, I am so sorry, I cannot remember the speaker, but someone pointed out that a lot of startups are very successful very quickly is because they hire a lot of design minded individuals, even though their role is not directly in like doing activity in the design realm. Like you can hire, a design minded product owners nowadays a lot easier versus like 10, 20 years ago. And that is something that I think people are taking more seriously of what the users actually want. And I think there are a lot more products that are directly consumer facing versus, we're not just building product for another, uh, enterprise or, B2B type of products. So I think the users definitely come into everyone's mind a lot more, which is very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And you can kind of see it. It's interesting as you see kind of like the number of conferences and workshops and things just continuing to expand, as kind of a way of gauging just how much the craft is expanding and taking off. And hopefully, that will just continue to be a way to gauge how companies are continuing to pick up the idea that you really have to take user experience and product very seriously if you want to succeed. And I think it's something that we take for granted, really, if you're in product and UX, that it's just a given. And it's easy to kind of take that mindset that, yes, this is a given. And we just, we're going to take these things very seriously. But, when you step outside of our world a little bit, that's just not the mindset that everybody has. And so, we have to continue to help drive that forward and push everybody forward in having that mindset of what's the user experience like? What is the overall product experience like? And how do we help everybody not just look at, kind of things in isolation or, we're going to do this project and be done. But what does this holistic thing look like? And how are we going to make this sustainable and usable and the right experience and the right business value to make this the right thing to do strategically? And it's a shift, and it's a big shift for a lot of companies and organizations in a way that I think we can take for granted easily if we've been doing this for a long time.
Totally. And to your point of not working on something in isolation too, is that's why I really like my job too, is because I don't have to have all the answers. And most of the time when we do testing, user research and all these tools that we have and methods that we have is to find the answers from our users, not so much like, shut the door and let's crank out something that we think is the perfect answer. And I think that's a mentality that we're still trying to educate others, is that we might not know the answer now, and we that's why we need to test, we need to ask. And it sounds very much like, oh, what then what do I pay you for? But that's exactly what you're paying for, is that I can help you to find the answer and help you to get actual qualitative and quantitative data to make sure we're building towards an actual problem, not a problem that we think the users are having. And so and another point I want to bring up also is that, and the term design, I think it also now means very different things than what it used to mean. And it's not so much just visuals anymore. Like I said, 10 years ago, when we talk about design, people immediately think about like, oh, you're designing, drawing and doing a lot of graphics and stuff and branding, lettering, all these, visual stuff. But now everyone on the product team is in a way a designer, that you are putting a part of your, solution into the product that will end up crafting that experience for your user. And me as a designer, I'm not even doing a lot of, strictly visual stuff anymore. And I think that's also a very interesting change in how, we understand the word design. And I tell, engineers all the time too, is that I am, design is in my title, but you are actually designing a lot of how these behind the scenes moving pieces, how they function, and even the architecture. You design the architecture that drives, the actual product too. So
yeah, I think that's a great point. And how that just design in general, that term has kind of changed, and product in general, like those terms and definitions have just taken on so much more significant meaning than they have in the past. So for you, I guess, how would you kind of define product design, user experience design at this point?
How would I define it? So immediately what came to my mind is actually what you said to me one time, Kyle. And I'm going to use your answer to answer your question. But what came to mind was one time you said that it doesn't matter how we built this product, doesn't matter how we come up with a solution, there will be an experience that come out of it. So it doesn't matter how much effort, how much resources we want to dedicate into it. There is that user experience. And I think, like, if we were talking about specific to my role as a product designer, how I see product design is to really making sure we are crafting this experience, targeting what the users need. I hope that is what you're looking for. So yeah, that is how I see it. And I'm curious too, like, how do you define product management or product design? If you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I think you've got it pretty much nailed down for like what product design is. And I think that really goes to the whole point of product management as well, is what is the holistic experience that we're creating? And then how do we create the right experience and the right product that delivers value for the user and for the business? And I think that's kind of what the role of a product manager, a product designer, and really a product team is ensuring that we're creating the right thing and doing it in the right way, so that we're delivering the value that we kind of talk about. Because like you said, one way or another, we're creating those experiences, and we're either going to create bad ones, or we're going to create good ones. And so ensuring that we're doing the right things is just such a huge part of what the roles entail. And then ensuring that we're ultimately delivering that value. One thing that I used as an example just a couple days ago, feels like time is just, what is time anymore? Anybody listening to this in the future, we're a few days into
we're in an apocalypse.
Yeah,
basically.
the quarantine apocalypse, where time just feels like it's all relative at this point, and don't know what days are, what years are.
1 year.
Yeah. And that's about what it feels like anymore. It's like, it could be a Friday, it could be 2020, it could be 2015. There's just no way to tell anymore.
But I can confirm that I did graduate in 2013. I just did some calculation in my head.
We've done the research now, and we can confirm that.
Yes.
Nice. Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So an example that I used just a few days ago was, we had been looking at creating a product specifically to fill kind of a need for one of the groups that we work with. And, one of our product managers had done some research on that and had gone in pretty extensively, going through the benefits, doing the analysis, doing all of the work that you'd kind of expect from a product manager. And then at the end of it, we came to the conclusion that ultimately this just wasn't the right thing to build. And that's kind of exactly what you would hope for and expect from product management, from doing those things up front, is that, we understand what are the right things and what are to do and what are the things that we want to avoid, so that we don't get ourselves into going down the path of building the wrong things. Do some of the experimenting upfront and the analysis upfront to decide, is there real value here? And that's what we came to the conclusion, is that there's just not enough value to justify what the potential would be. And so what we had been really excited about initially as a potential real winner, we came to the conclusion that it's not going to work out. And so we ended up killing it, which, we often feel bad about. But those are the kinds of things that are like, we should be feeling really good about, because we've gone through and we've saved ourselves just a significant amount of time and effort and resources in not pursuing the wrong things, and being able to pursue the right things. And so that's just a huge part of what I feel like product management and product design is.
Right. And not my team, right? You didn't cut the team that I'm working on, right?
No.
Hopefully not. I'll find out after the recording, but
No, different area.
good. But I want to add to what you're saying about basically our delivery is we need to mean something to the business, right? And the one thing to bring it back to design again is that a lot of people still think that product design or even UX in general, the mission is, to make sure your users feel good and, be happy. And I always want to remind people like, no, we don't just stop there. And users liking their product, if it's a consumer facing product, then people will, stay in the subscription, that generate revenue, right? That means something to the business. It's not just about feeling good and we stop there. No, it's not just that. And I think this kind of dives into one of our questions is that what is challenging moment in your career is I want to say sometimes we know we're doing the right thing, but then it's challenging to kind of translate that to the business and say, okay, right now we have finished this one solution and we have made sure that we deliver it back to the user. But what does that mean to the business? It sometimes takes more brain power to figure out how do I translate my contribution back in metrics that I can hand back to my boss or to the rest of the business and say, this is why you need product design. And one example I can think of is when I was on the team that worked on an internal product for our sales agent, is that any seconds that we can save, any efficiency we can deliver in the product is time that will, literally save. Then at the end of the day, they can get on another call faster, whatever, that looks like. But keeping track of that metrics sometimes is a big ticket item that I have to make sure I, get that done. So then at the end of the day, we can say, okay, the product design team can deliver this impact for the business, and so that we can get more resources to, and invest it back in the product design team. And I think not just product design team, I think as product team as a whole, we are all trying to show the business that, yeah, we're very helpful. We can deliver, dollar amount back into the business. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's such a huge part of being able to show what the value is. There's kind of a quantifiable part of it, is how do we quantify, some of the things that we're able to deliver and show that value. And then also, what's the unquantifiable part, and how do we kind of craft the narrative around that so that, people can understand that there's parts as well that we may not be able to put necessarily numbers or metrics around, but there's significant value there as well, and be able to tell the story with both the data as well as the narrative. And so it's such an important part of helping everybody understand what it is we're doing. And I think that goes beyond just, product teams in general, but goes all the way to the products as well.
Right.
How do we show the value of these things that we're doing, both with, the metrics and numbers, and also with the story.
Now I just keep thinking about how how did this all happen that somebody decided to have Siri to tell you, oh, you're good looking today, or to be able to tell a joke. And those are delightful features that I don't think a lot of, business would say, oh, today we're going to have a discovery meeting, that will deliver $1 million per, year in revenue by Siri telling a joke. But I do think there's a lot to say about helping the user to fall in love with your product and turning that into less, not just, okay, now you can schedule an event on your calendar. That's the end of it. I think there's a lot to say about those delightful features that we can also put in the product too that seems intangible in the grand scheme of capturing metrics to improve the business? But and I know that on our team we try to do those things, but what are your thoughts on those delightful moments for the users? Just how we can convince the business to invest in those.
Oh man, that's a great question.
It's a level 100 question, I feel like.
Yeah. I think that they're really important for one, and how do we start to separate and prioritize some of those, and that becomes like a really difficult question, and probably my answer would be it's going to depend. So classic product answer is it depends.
Yes.
And in I think back to some of the products that I've had the chance to work on in the past, and those we've kind of been looking at those in a variety of different ways, and there was one I'm thinking back to, a few years ago, to a product that we were working on for a university, and creating an online assessment experience. So not something that is like particularly enjoyable, but how do you make it better for everybody involved? And there are certain things that are kind of functional level, so you have to have them there for students and faculty so that everybody can do what they need to. But then also, how do we just make this more enjoyable? And there's different levels of that, where there's certain things that you can do that don't require either a ton of effort, and you're able to get them in with other things that are going on. And then there's certain things that you kind of look at as we're working on kind of these levels of functionality, but these other things would also just bring so much benefit based on the conversations that we're having, the things that we're doing. And then as you kind of start to socialize that and get feedback, kind of as a product manager, you're able to understand where some of those things would fall and the benefit that you'd feel like you'd be able to get. And a lot of times I don't feel like you're able to necessarily quantify that in a specific way, other than kind of just based on all the knowledge that you're able to gather. And so and that's kind of part of, I'd say, more of the art of what you're doing than necessarily the science, is being able to make some of those decisions around, here is things that we think will really add value to the overall experience. And that's why I think it's so important to have autonomous teams that are able to make those types of decisions and create the products and the experiences that they feel like are the best for their users. Because if it's completely dictated from people just who aren't as close to the product and as close to the users, then you don't have the ability to kind of make those decisions. And I think products that are like that tend to suffer, because teams and product managers and product designers who are able to do that are able to take those types of chances and gather the information and make those decisions, are able to just make better decisions, because they're on the front lines, they're talking to users, they're gathering the data, and then they're able to take those types of chances, and I think just improve the experience. And so I think part of it is being able to do that, and then be able to make those types of decisions without necessarily having to justify it in a way that they have to convince everybody that it's the right thing to do before they go out and do it. I think there needs to be a level of autonomy that they're able to make those types of decisions and do those types of experiments, and then prove out that it is either the right thing or they need to move in some sort of other direction, rather than going fully into some of it. So I think that's kind of one of the ways to start to prove those things out.
Yeah. And going back to the beginning of what you said, that it depends, being a very product management answer. And I actually really love that, because that is from my perspective, right? Looking at you guys, where we work together. And I think that is the best part about working with a product manager, product owner, is that you guys are able to kind of take in all these factors and kind of balance them all and find the most optimal solution depending on, all these factors. And I think that sounds like a non-answer, but I do think that is the crux of what, product management can do, is just to find the most optimal solution with all these factors. And with right after I asked you that question too, I was like, yeah, how would I answer that? And I really like everything you have said. And from my perspective too, and like you said, the art of this versus the science of product. And at the end of the day, I would love to think that the product that I'm working on, even if there's another product that can deliver the same thing, I want my user to say, you know what, but the product A is more fun to use, even though it can do, product B can do the exact same thing. And these are maybe going back to intangible feelings of people liking something. And it's the feel good, a little bit of that intangible feelings that you want. You want Siri to tell you that you're good looking, and you want Siri to be able to tell you a joke. And again, those are not the middle of what you're asking for as a user, but then those surrounding pieces are kind of the more human parts that you can, now we're talking about like robots being humans, but you know what I mean? It's the intangible, like feel good elements that we sprinkled in. So it's not just a car that can take you point A to B, but it's a Tesla. Like, I have never seen anyone that would brag about their cars so much. I guess people that drive Subaru, they do. And I have an Elantra. You have a Hyundai too. So yeah. People go into our car, we don't go, oh my goodness, look at what this car can do. It's a car, right? Yeah. But then our friend in the office, Scott, has a Tesla. Every time it's like, oh, what is a Tesla? And he can go off, nonstop about why Tesla is so great and why you really need to try this, push this button, do this other things. It's a whole long list of stuff that you want your user to be able to, advocate for your product to another potential user, which is kind of magical in a way. And there's so many examples that I can think of too. And I know everyone knows about the Honeywell thermostat. And then Nest came in and took the whole market. And, it's all these examples that we can look at and see. But then I think coming back to really reality, when we go back to our desk, and the one way that I really think we can make these things happen, these intangible, delightful little things to happen, is really make sure we gather a lot of like big wins, like to generate revenue, make sure we do, the big part of our job right. And then I can say, oh, what about we add this little piece and add that little piece? And I think getting that trust from the business is very important to fight for your user and help build a product that your user will love. And yeah, it all sounds very idealistic until, it's like, oh, we have this one conversation and then we feel kind of defeated. And then we go into the next meeting and be like, oh, then we fight again. And that's also actually really part of what we do. And I love that process, is that we get to have these continuous conversations, try to, basically it's a negotiation, I feel like, to say, okay, we'll do this, but what about this other thing? And, so yeah, I feel like I have very vivid memories of these meetings happening, and I don't want to tell you exactly what happened, but that's kind of the happenings. So yeah.
Yep. Let me ask you two questions to kind of wrap up here about what you think are some of the areas that you're kind of most excited about to kind of be talking about over the course of, upcoming podcast episodes. And then as a follow-up, what do you hope that, folks who are listening will be getting out of, some of the discussions that we'll be having?
All right. So I have answers for your first question. I actually had the answer yesterday, and I didn't want to tell you because I was like, oh, I'm going to talk about it when we record. We kind of started talking about, accessibility and inclusive design a little bit. So that's one topic that I'm very into right now. And I think coming back from my conference and also day to day using, product and thinking about how other users will have, how their experience looks compared to mine kind of drives me to that direction. And yesterday, something really interesting happened is that I was on this website trying to look for bridesmaid dresses, planning a wedding. Yay. It's very weird to do wedding planning in the middle of an epidemic
Yeah.
and after an earthquake. It's crazy. It feels very unnatural, but still got to plan it. And so this website offers, a bunch of different options. And as I'm browsing, all of a sudden I saw this pop up and it asks me like, do I need any accessibility help? And I was very intrigued. I was like, what is this about? And it's just like on the top left corner, there's a little pop up and I clicked into it and I saw this full panel of options that I can choose, and it's increasing font size and all these little things that we have talked about the other day about how do people without vision can, how do they take in these information from the page, or people who are, impaired in different ways, how do they consume these information, right? So yeah, we'll definitely talk a lot about those because this is such a big topic and there's so many degrees of accessibility that we can talk about. And it's not just going up and down, it's also left and right. Like there's so many ways to cut this cake, I feel like. And so yeah, I'm getting really worked up about this now, but I'll leave my excitement for next time when we talk about this. And actually, before I answer your question, I want to hear what you're excited about. What kind of hot topics for project management?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. There's so many topics that I'm excited about. And in typical product manager fashion, I guess, we just love talking about stuff and talking about everything. I guess one thing that has been kind of top of mind, a couple things top of mind for me. One is using data just better, more efficiently across everything that we're doing. How do we do that better, and how do we do it right? So, there's the idea of kind of product ops is becoming more and more prevalent. So how do we kind of incorporate that either in an actual role or just more across what we're doing as product teams? And then how do we ensure that we're also not getting caught in the trap of overuse of data, which
interesting.
Yeah, I feel like can be it's kind of the opposite side of it too. So like, what's the right balance of getting the right amount of data into what we're doing, but then also getting the right data into what we're doing and into our decision making process. So that's one area. Like you touched on the idea of accessibility and inclusivity. How do we ensure that the products and experiences that we're doing are right for everyone, and that we're taking that into account? I think it's very easy to overlook different groups, and so ensuring that we're not doing that as we're creating our products and experiences. And I'm excited. I feel like that's going to be at least one episode, if not more. So we'll be
hours. Yeah.
Yes. Well, it'll be one episode cut into like multiple parts or segments. That'll be a great one. And then product, what I call product thinking or product mindset. Like, how do we really just take into account the holistic mindset of product and get out of the thinking in terms of silos and in terms of kind of discrete projects, and get into thinking about holistic products and holistic experiences and long-lived products, essentially. And so that's a huge thing for me that I think about all the time. I've written about, and so that's, I think, going to be a big topic that I'm excited to talk more about.
I feel like we just kind of went through like the next like 30 episodes of what we can talk about. And I also want to point out the two words that you said, accessibility and inclusivity. Wait, what did you say? Yeah. It's funny that those two words are very, very inconvenient to say. they're very not a good experience for for people that don't use those words. And yeah, accessibility is fine, but inclusivity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's a
I
good
am
point.
a ESL, so it's kind of funny. It just how those words become the word that we use to describe helping other people to get, get data easily, get information easily. But I'm sure I will use this joke again when we record that episode. But oh yeah, please remind me.
Yeah. Something to look forward to.
Yes. All right.
Cool. And what do you hope that people get out of some of the next?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I people have told me I'm really good at this. What is that? Reflection. When I distract you and I don't have to answer a question, I feel like I unintentionally just did that. But I definitely hope that we can help people to kind of bring these ideas back to their desks, and also understand how to better talk about these things, because it's very easy for us to learn new ideas and learn new, textbook answers of what you should be doing. But then in the real world, I think, like I mentioned before, it's very challenging to want to do all the things that I want to do, but then having to convince the business, having to convince, people that don't practice in the same field, what you do is important and why they're important is something that I have to learn. And I feel like I've gotten to a point where I'm at least like fairly confident in talking about, why we need product design and why this matters to other, other people that we work with, like account management or, engineering. And so, yeah, I hope that we can help listeners to get a little, at least comfort knowing that, oh, it is not supposed to be easy. And I mean, that's why we're getting paid to do this. And also how you can talk about it, how we can talk about these big ideas, and yeah, just a way to apply. So that's kind of my hope. And I also hope that we can, I don't know, I want to learn better how to talk about it as I, talk about these topics with you.
Nice.
What about you?
I don't think I could add any more to that. So I think that's exactly what I hope as well.
Oh, so you just copy and paste it.
Yeah.
My answer.
Copy paste. That's perfect.
Yeah. Oh man, this reminds me. I always go into tangent, and now I want to bring up the inventor of copy and paste passed away like last month. R.I.P. Larry, was that his name?
What was his name? We should know it.
I feel like I should know.
On all of our memories, because the amount of time
big feature
that he
yes
saved us is
human productivity. Yeah.
Yeah, now we have to look.
Are you looking it up?
Yeah. Larry Tesler. So this episode is dedicated to Larry Tesler.
Larry, we love you. We don't know you, but thank you.
Inventor of copy and paste computer functions.
I like this. I feel like maybe every time we can bring up one person, one big feature that we love.
Yes, there we go.
Today is Larry.
Larry. Yeah. Perfect. All right. I guess that's a new thing. So we'll see. We'll see what the next episode is, who it's dedicated to, and the inventor.
Do they have? Yeah. They don't have to be in the ground, right? Like anyone?
No, just
no.
Yeah. Well, no, not necessarily.
Okay, the list just got a lot longer.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Sweet.
All right. Well,
this has been fun.
This has been fun. So thanks everybody for, I guess, joining us on our first episode. And I guess that's it. And we'll talk more next time.
Sweet. Thank you.
Sweet. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. You can find out more about us and our podcast on our website at productbydesign.co. You can also follow us on Twitter at prodbydesign. That's at prod_by_design. You can follow me on Twitter at Kyle Larry Evans. And you can also find Eva on Twitter at Yan Chow Chow. See you next time.